And it's 7 o'clock. So do we have any regrets, Mr. Gordon?
Madam Chair, no, other than Mayor Little, we are expecting
Councillor Forbes is attending.
We are expecting her, Your Worship.
Okay. Okay. And you can hear me okay, Mr. Gordon?
Yes, Your Worship, everything in council chambers is fine. We're ready to go.
I've made all the children turn their Wi-Fi off, so I have good Wi-Fi. And Councillor Forbes will join us. Okay, so thank you. Happy New Year to everybody and welcome to the first meeting of 2022. I'm Councillor Lisa Murray and I'm acting mayor this evening. Mayor Little would just like to say that he passes on his regrets. He was unable to make it tonight as he and several of his family members tested positive for COVID. So he's resting comfortably at home and I'll be chairing this evening's meeting. So I'm sure he's tuning in and get well, Mayor Little. So thank you very much for that. And before we open up the regular agenda, and Mr. Joyce is on the line. Mr. Joyce, are you here?
I am, Your Worship. I am here.
There he is. Okay, so I just wanted to touch on the last few weeks with the weather that we've experienced. First of all, I'd like to say on behalf of the mayor and certainly on behalf of council, a great thanks to our streets and our parks crews. Good evening, Councillor Forbes. Welcome. Thank you. I just wanted to say a big thank you to our streets and our parks crews. It's another extreme weather system that greeted us for a white Christmas this year and didn't stop. And it's not even snow season in our neck of the woods. So we don't usually get this kind of snow, if we get it at all, until, end of January, February. So it was certainly a significant event. And I just wanted to draw attention to a couple of things so the community understands, what goes on in these events. We had about 58 staff from 3 departments, that was streets, utilities, and parks, that volunteered to help support the Winter Streets program by working extra hours. And as our complement of employees, as we many of them retire, that becomes more of a challenge to have that level of volunteerism. So they don't actually know what hours they're going to get. And we know that our snowplow drivers worked right through all of the holidays in 12-hour shifts, 24 hours a day. In fact, since December 22nd, we have had 20 uninterrupted days of 24-hour response into our communities. And I'm sure many of us were out and about in the region. My experience was, and I have family that live in Vancouver, in all points of Vancouver and Delta. I would say that our streets were among the best in the region. It was an incredible task, and Mother Nature threw a wallop at us. And at times, our drivers, they couldn't keep up. She was pushing really hard, but they got the job done. And I think we were really well serviced. And I've heard, multiple comments on social media and seen people in the community just saying, thank the crews, because it was really, really well done. Obviously, there were some areas that we couldn't get to because it just freezes up. It's ice, the plows, it's challenging for them. But Mr. Joyce and Mr. Stewart, please make sure that they know how proud we were of their work and how proud the community was that they stepped up as they did and allowed us to move around the community. Just adding to that, I just wanted to sort of touch on a regular 24-hour shift, they have about 10 streets and utility staff, 12 hours back to back. In addition to that, we had 14 park staff working 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. clearing parking lots, multi-use paths, the bike lanes, and sidewalks. And I'm sure many of you council and the community saw them working with wheelbarrows full of salt. They were clearing the bike lanes as best they could, clearing the sidewalks. We had a huge amount of snow and weight on a lot of trees. And I know down the parkway, the trees were hanging so far over onto the sidewalks that they had to get the snow off the trees just to be able to clear the sidewalks. And they cleared the bus stops, and they also cleared the schools access, even though the schools were delayed for a week, but they were out there preparing just in case. So regularly, our regular hours for those crews is about 3,500. In this event, we were at 4,800 overtime and off hours. So that means not just Monday to Friday, but on the weekends as well. So it was a significant event, and we really don't know if and when we're going to get another one. We could certainly get another bout of significant snow coming February, March. We know that we have a significant, another weather system coming in the form of rain. We would ask the community if they know where their storm sewers are. It might be that they're under a pile of snow or ice still, but if you're able to get to your storm sewer, make sure that it's clear. We've got to deal with a big melt that's coming and a lot of water, and there is an atmospheric river coming, and the intensity will peak on Wednesday. And of course, we cannot do all of this and let the community know what's going on and communicate with them without our front reception. The front end, they were front counters. They were working diligently, responding to residents' concerns when people were phoning in to have plows come up to their neighborhood because, they just couldn't get out. Our front desk and our reception was monitoring and managing all those calls. In addition to our communications department, and the ever popular Snow Command was up and running feverishly, posting daily, sometimes 3 times a day. They were posting Snow Command weather reports that we were able to share on social media. I know Councillor Forbes was posting on a regular basis, as was I. And I think it's really helpful for the community to hear those weather reports, and we got a lot of good response from that. So thank you to all those people. Mr. Joyce, am I missing anything? Am I forgetting anything?
No, Your Worship, I think that's you've covered it all, and appreciate those kind comments. I'll make sure that's passed on to the crews. It is very much a team effort. Besides the plows, which you folks see, there's mechanics in the garage work, keeping the plows on the road. There's first line taking calls. So there's goes to the organization. Those are the same men and women that work in your parks department, your solid waste pickup. They're cross-trained to move into those snow and ice areas when we have those events. So that's our core complement of the district here, and they're all trained to respond to the snow and ice events. But thank you for the comment.
You're welcome. And I know garbage, I know that there was one touch and go day there where we weren't sure if the garbage was going to be able to make it on their rounds. They chained up and they completed 95% of the route. Is that still the number, Mr. Joyce?
It is, and there's a bit of it within the culture we have, which is a great culture. There's a little bit of a competition, because the solid waste fellas look to the street guys to get the streets cleared so they can get their job done, which is the pickup of the garbage. So there's a lot of pride with this group, and I think that's what you see. And as we move through and some move out, we're trying to maintain that with a new crowd that is coming in. But we have right now you have a very strong culture of customer service within the snow and ice and the garbage pickup.
Yeah, no, super impressive. So they did make those rounds. Now, we know that we had some challenges with the company that operates the recycling, Emterra. That's run by the provincial government, and they had some, challenges with being able to get the service, but we're in contact with them in regards to some of the issues that the communities in the neighborhood faced. And we're communicating those issues to Emterra. And, we encourage the community to also contact them directly because there were some blips with that. But we'll work through all that for future events. And again, just to everyone, Mr. Joyce, Mr. Stewart, our heartfelt thank you. And, a lot of these drivers, they're driving through Christmas, they're away from their families, and they're driving 12-hour shifts, and then they're going home, sleeping, and then getting back into their trucks. And it's a lot. And, we're all at home warm and sitting by our trees and with our families, and they're keeping the roads safe for those, that really need to travel. our first responders, et cetera. So we really do, we are grateful for their service. Mr. Stewart.
Yeah, Your Worship, this might be a good opportunity. I was going to say something at the end of the meeting, but we've been advised that we've been selected one of the top 50 employers in BC again for 2022. That's 4 out of the last 5 years. And Gavin talks about culture, and a lot of this this honor reflects, in fact, what the staff think of the organization. And so I'm very pleased to be able to let council know that.
Very important. And thank you, Mr. Stewart, for talking about that at the beginning of the meeting. It's good when we have a captive audience. I think these are really important points to make, and they should be brought up early. So thank you for that. And now we will move on with the formal part of the meeting. Mr. Gordon, we are going to have adoption of the agenda for January 10th, 2022. Can I have a mover? And I need those hands up. Councillor Forbes, and seconded by Councillor Back. All those in favor, opposed, motion carried. And now we're going to go to public input. And again, do we have anybody on the speakers list for public input? I think we have one person wanting to speak to the agenda item. Mr. Gordon, is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct, Your Worship. We have nobody signed up at this portion of the public input, but it may be opportune to ask if there's any virtual or in-person speakers wanting to speak.
And I was going to ask that very question. Is there anybody, and Mr. Gordon, you'll alert me if I can't see everybody on my gallery view, but if there's anybody online or in the chamber that have just walked in that would like to comment on any of the agenda items tonight or anything else, speak now.
And Your Worship, we have 3 names, and for they are Mr. Tevan just disappeared, or maybe he's been promoted. Mr. Tevan would like to speak.
Okay.
Corey Cost, and then
Yep.
Katie Blank. Ms. Blank, if you're listening, we have you speaking at the agenda item 8.4, if that's to your satisfaction. Okay, apparently. So we have Mr. Tevan and Mr. Cost.
Mr. Tevan.
Thank you very much, Your Worship and Council, and Happy New Year to everyone. I just wanted to add to the earlier commentary on the snow removal. As you know, I live near, but not in Deep Cove. And the previous weather event that we had that caused all the widespread flooding, I saw a lot of comments from some of my neighbors down in Deep Cove that expressed particular gratitude to the district for having completed, as difficult as it was during the event, having completed the storm sewer upgrades in advance of that really saved Deep Cove from what was probably a calamity. And so I did see people there specifically reaching out and saying congratulations and thank you. So please, I specifically cited Mr. Joyce and his department. I imagine we're probably lead on that project. So job well done from an engineering point of view. Thank you very much. I just wanted to comment on 2 of the items tonight, or sorry, one of the items on the agenda and one other little one. Well, not little one, but the first is that, I read through, and many of you on council know that I really strive to, keep a good understanding of the reserve funds. And I read through the item, and while it seems to me that this is mostly following up on earlier decisions, I have to tell you, it was quite difficult to follow. What really would have been helpful was some, perhaps accounting tables showing, look, here's the balance in this fund and it's moving across into this one. It was very difficult for me to track. And from that point of view, trying to read it in prose rather than in tables, it almost felt like I was trying to follow one of those little, shell games where they switch around all the shells and you're supposed to find the marble. I found it quite confusing. The other thing that I just wanted to bring to your attention and maybe invite some update at some point is concerns about the sewage treatment plant project. It was several months ago, I think it was in late September, early October, that we had the CAO of Metro Vancouver join our meetings, tell us that, the project was proceeding quite nicely, but there was a few issues. And then it seemed within 24 hours of that statement, the whole thing was shut down and fell off the rails. I think we're coming to a time now when we can expect to hear how things are getting back on the rails. You know, we probably already spent $500 million on that project, sunk costs. Certainly we're not walking away. So I think the people would really like to hear that it's getting back on the rails and look for some updates. And with that, I'll say thank you and Happy New Year.
Thank you, Mr. Tevan. Mr. Cost, I believe you're next.
You should be able to hear me,
Yes.
Your Worship. Happy New Year to everyone. Start your last year of your term, which should be an interesting year in many ways. I just want to give some information about COVID itself and going into buildings like the hall. I certainly was tempted to go in person at the hall, but two things dissuaded me. One was there really are no members of council at the hall to really see. And the second problem is that the spreadability of the latest version, Omicron, of the COVID-19 virus is much more spreadable to such a great degree that it would be worth knowing how well the ventilation system is working at the hall. I did send a very simple paper to mayor and council to try and get the numbers that the public, like myself, would be interested in knowing, and that is, what's the status of the room exchange air? Is it at least some refreshed 5 or 10 times per hour? And does it go through proper filters, ideally HEPA filters? So it'd be useful, I think, if the public should want to attend, to just know those facts, and then they can make a more objective decision on whether to attend the hall or not. In the meantime, I'm safely at home, and I'll be listening to council this evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cost. Mr. Gordon, is that, we're going to have the third speaker speak at the item.
That's correct, Your Worship, unless Ms. Blank has changed her mind. Maybe perhaps we can just get confirmation from her that she's willing to wait until item 8.4.
Ms. Blank, you could speak now or at the item.
Yeah, I'm totally happy to speak at the item. Sorry, got disconnected at the moment you asked me the question originally.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, that's
Thank
it, Your
you.
Worship. Speakers.
Okay, thank you very much. So we have no recognitions, delegations, adoption of minutes, release of closed meeting decisions. So we'll go to reports from staff. We'll go to 8.1. Is there a mover for 8.1? Bylaw 8455, 5657, and 58, the OCP rezoning and development cost charge waiver and housing agreement bylaws for 220 Mountain Highway. Can I have a mover? Councillor Back. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Hanson. These are adoptions, so there's no discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. On to the next item, 8.2, bylaw 8543, reserve funds amendment bylaw, and bylaw 8542, reserve funds transfer and reappeal bylaw. Can I ask for a mover on that? It's also for adoption, so there's no discussion. Councillor Curran, second by Councillor Back. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. And then we'll go to 8.3, bylaw 8539, Riverside site development cost change waiver. Is that supposed to say cost charge waiver?
That's
Mr.
correct, Your Worship. That's a typo.
Cost charge, not cost change. Mr. Gordon?
Yeah, sorry, Your Worship, I did answer. You are correct. It should be charged, not change. That's a typo.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you very much. And again, adoption. Can I ask for a mover? Counselor Hanson and seconded by Counselor Curran. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. On to 8.4. Development permit 50.21 signage for 1633 Capilano Road. And we have a speaker, Miss Katie Blank. You're up.
Hello, good evening. And
welcome.
everyone can hear me okay?
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Your Worship, and members of council for the opportunity to speak in favor of development permit 50.21 regarding signage at 1633 Capilano Road. I'd also sincerely like to thank the planning department, who has been incredibly supportive during the process. So I'm the senior graphic designer at Edge Experience Design Group, the applicant, and we are a wayfinding and signage consultancy in Vancouver. And on behalf of our client, Celtic Canada Development, we're proposing a cohesive site-wide sign program for the mixed-use development, which we call Park West. As in our work as wayfinding consultants, our team, we assess how first-time and occasional visitors navigate spaces, whether that's on foot or by vehicle. How could we best reassure them and give them a sense of arrival? At the same time, we also want to scale the signs appropriately for a more intimate village environment in this case. Although our client has instructed us to best comply with the sign bylaw where possible, we are requesting variances to allow signage placement at logical intervals, as well as with the placement and scale considered carefully for optimal legibility. I know it seems like a lot at a glance, although in the past, the district has noted the sign bylaw is outdated and does not necessarily consider the recent emergence of mixed-use developments, such as Park West. We've had similar working experience with you on recent projects such as Lynn Valley Center and Northwoods Village. Those also faced similar challenges. Regardless, we've designed our signage to integrate with the architecture and landscaping, avoid any conflict with public art, circulation paths and such. Also considering the neighborhood character, and it is a rather active gateway to the district, so it is important to carefully consider signage. So I believe our proposal achieves a good balance for the visibility needs of first-time visitors, for commercial tenants, and residents alike. Our team is confident that the proposed high quality and contemporary signage will be a positive contribution to the neighborhood. So I hope that council will show broad support for our requested variances. And as planning has also recommended and encouraged, I can happily address any questions if required, but meanwhile, thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you so much. Councillor Hanson, are you moving the recommendation?
I am. Thank you, Acting Mayor Murray.
And Councillor Back, you're seconding the motion?
Yes.
Councillor Hanson.
Thank you very much. And I'm happy to support the issuance of this development permit with variances to accommodate signage at the mixed-use development site Park West near Capilano and Marine. In this circumstance, I believe I must show considerable deference to staff who have evaluated the variances sought and are recommending the granting of those variances. Park West is a large, complex, mixed-use development site, including residential and commercial uses. I understand that staff have worked closely with the applicant to create a scheme for signage that accommodates the needs of this site. Staff's work in this regard appears to have been very comprehensive. Multiple departments in the district were involved. The proposed variances were placed against existing bylaws and other reference documents relevant to the Lionsgate area. 136 neighbors were informed of the proposed variance, as was the Lionsgate Neighborhood Association. There was no public opposition, and I'm happy to support the issuance of this development permit with variances. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Hanson. Councillor Back.
Thank you, Acting Mayor Murray. Just a brief comment. I think Councillor Hanson covered the issue very well. I did hear the speaker's comments with regards to our silent sign bylaw, possibly needing some updates referencing Northwoods, and I remember the Lynn Valley item coming forward. So wondering if staff can maybe look for an opportunity to bring that forward for council discussion at some point. But other than that, no, I'm supportive. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Beck. I have to chuckle a bit because I think the sign bylaw, I don't know how many times we've reviewed the sign bylaw over the years, and it always continues to need to be reviewed because there's always challenges with signs and too much signage or too little signage. So certainly if staff feels like we have to look at some amendments. I will note, Ms. Blank, you brought up Northwoods, and did you play a role in the placement of the signage as well as the graphics? So the whole package you played a role in?
I did play a partial role in that project. And I do recall your comments when we did the Lynn Valley Center project, that citing of the signage was a concern with
Yes.
Northwoods Village. Now, in the context of that particular project, we did make sure we were complying with the sign bylaw in terms of sighting distance from the property line. In the case of Park West, I can assure you we are meeting those distance requirements. There's only 2 freestanding signs in this case, and both of them are integrated into planters. And the main one that's at the corner of Capilano and Marine, that one will have trees behind it eventually, so it's not going to be interfering with any intended sight lines. And then the second one is much smaller, off of the back road right at the entrance to get to the parkade ramps. And that one is again set well back from the sidewalk and the driveway and the property line, while
Okay.
still signaling there's a turn. But we obviously are aware of that concern and we want to respect it. And I agree with you.
Thank you so much for those comments. That was always my concern, was the placement of them, because I know at Northwoods on Dollarton, when you're coming out of Northwoods closest to Starbucks, there is a sign that sits right in the sight line, the road curves, and it's very challenging. You have to move your car out and you're basically in the direct line of a multi-use pathway, often used for bikes, not always, but pedestrians and some electric bikes. And it can be very challenging when you're trying to gauge the speed. So sighting for these signs was very important. Do I have any other comments from any other members of council? No. Okay, then we'll call the question on the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Blank. Have a nice evening.
Well, Your Worship,
Yes.
on my screen, the councillors were frozen at the time.
Oh, well, let's do it again. Are we all, everybody,
Anybody opposed? If
are
not,
we
there's a name.
unfrozen? All those in favor, put your hands up. So if you freeze, Mr. Gordon can count. All those opposed? I don't think anybody's opposed. I'm not sure if Councillor Bond is still around. I can't see him. But do you have the vote, Mr. Gordon?
We do, Your Worship. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Ms. Blank.
Thank
Okay.
you again.
Yes, thank you. Bye-bye. Okay, hold on a sec. I'm just gotta get the, okay, hold on. Mr. Gordon, can you just introduce the next item, please?
Yes, Your Worship. The next item, 8.5, is bylaw 8524, rezoning for 4320 Prospect Road. This is for consideration of second and third reading coming out of a closed public hearing.
Right. Okay, is there a motion? No motion. Councillor Hanson, do you have a motion?
I'll move the recommendation.
Is there a seconder? I don't have a seconder.
Second.
Councillor Curran, I think, had her hand up first. Councillor Curran. Councillor Hanson.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm pleased to support the rezoning at 4320 Prospect to enable the subdivision of 2 lots. This will result in a lot layout very similar to the lot immediately to the south. I can say that I have visited the site And I believe that the rezoning to permit the subdivision of these two lots is reasonable in view of the surrounding area and the size of the lots in the surrounding area. The resulting lots would be 7 feet narrower than the RS zone regulation, but also nearly 40 feet deeper than required. Overall, the lot size would easily exceed the RS3 minimum. I believe this kind of very gentle densification is appropriate for the neighborhood. And given similar subdivision of the lot immediately to the south, I believe it would be inequitable not to permit the rezoning to allow this subdivision. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Curran.
Thank you, and thank you, Councillor Hanson, for that thorough introduction. We did get to discuss this previously, and I think that the outcome of two lots is, in the long run, going to be a better use of land. So I am happy to support it.
Is there anybody else that would like to comment? Councillor Back, did you have your hand up? No?
Sorry, no, you
Okay, anybody else? I won't be supporting this subdivision application. I think when the two lots to the south were originally subdivided many years ago, it was a different climate that we're living in, that we were living in then, in comparison to what we're living now. And that's not just an environmental climate, that's a very lucrative real estate climate. And I'm concerned the very treed nature of that whole corridor. I'm not sure that encouraging or signaling that we're interested in further subdivision of those larger lots. I think we have to look at a way to preserve the forested character of the majority of them. And I have concerns about our tree bylaw. I have concerns about how the tree bylaw is affected by development. I have a concern about the canopy, and certainly there was little support in the community for the subdivision of these lots. I think we have a lot of work to do in that regard on subdivisions and what we're trying to protect. We certainly supported subdivision on more developed lots further up the Capilano, but there's these large, very well-treed lots, and I understand that the owners have rights on those lots, and there's a process in regards to looking at the canopy on those properties as well. But I'm hesitant at this point, so I won't be supporting it. So I don't see any other hands up, so I'll call the question on the motion. All those in favor? And opposed? And I remain opposed. Okay. Now, Mr. Gordon. Oh, the next item, sorry, I'm doing this on my phone. The next item is 8.6, and that's bylaw 8523, the text amendment to add cannabis retail store at 1461 Marine Drive. Do I have a motion for that item, council? No motion. Councillor Curran. Councillor Hanson is going to second it. Councillor Curran.
I'll move the staff recommendation.
And Councillor Hanson, you're seconding that?
I am, thank you. Acting Mayor.
Yeah. Thank you. Councillor
Mary?
Curran? Your comment?
Yeah, I guess I'll just add that the policy, I think, does allow us to make decisions on a case-by-case basis. And looking at this space, there is one other place in this location, but I think we have enough experience now with places that have opened previously, and it has not had any negative impact that we've been, and that is something that we asked at the last reading for this in general of any community concerns. And this space is zoned for a liquor store. And I think some of the concerns that we heard about are not going to be some of the concerns around crime and other things. I don't believe that this is going to do that. And in terms of that space in that area, it does provide an opportunity with a BC cannabis retailer for better jobs than perhaps other places, because they are government jobs. And so I can't see a good reason to not see this go forward. I don't think it's going to have any negative, any unnecessary negative outcomes.
Thank you, Councillor Kern. Councillor Hanson? Oh, you're back. There you are.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to support the text amendment to allow for cannabis retail at 1461 Marine. I have visited the site on several occasions. I believe the site to be suitable for cannabis retail. I note the availability of parking and easy access to the site. 924 notices were sent out to neighbors seeking input. The reaction was mixed. I do not believe that the cannabis retail stores creates the kind of community disruption that has been described by some of those who have expressed opposition. In that regard, I agree with Councillor Kern's comments. And I do want to specifically address the issue raised as to whether our policy permits the approval of a second cannabis store in a growth center. And I believe that a fair reading of that policy does specifically give us the authority. There's a section of the policy called council discretion, and it grants council full authority to, quote, allow or reject any application. Specifically, the policy allows us to, quote, exempt applications from all or any part of this policy. And I believe, in view of that very plain reading, very plain wording in the policy, that we have unlimited and unfettered discretion. And I believe this case is a case where we are justified in not following the policy, and because it's appropriate for the reasons stated by Councillor Kern, and because of the suitability of the site and all of the benefits to our community from having a government liquor store in that location, it's appropriate for us to exercise our specifically vested discretion and not follow the policy in these circumstances. I believe this to be appropriate, and I'm happy to support the text amendment. Thank you very much.
You meant cannabis store, not liquor store, right?
I meant, sorry, cannabis store, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Hanson. So and I think you bring up a very good point. So when this first began and council was faced with the issue of looking at the ability to add cannabis as a use within the commercial retail areas of the municipality, staff built a policy, brought it back to council, which was supported, that we would look at cannabis retail in town centers. And I'd have to say from the beginning, I don't think we stuck to that policy, because as Councillor Hanson points out, at the end of the policy, it gives council the unfettered ability to be able to determine, on a case-by-case basis, which areas we were going to support and which we weren't. I think the reason we created that policy and we asked staff to go back was because we wanted to sort of get a baseline of what kind of support or not was in the community for such a use. And I think you're correct that, the concerns have not materialized with the facilities that have been built thus far. But, I guess my challenge is with the fact that we create plans and we create policies, and then we don't follow them. And in this case, we didn't follow it at all. We allowed every application that came forward to be supported without exception. And I would just say that as we move forward, let's not give the community the idea that they do have, there is a way to reconsider or influence council in regards to their comments when we're just going to allow everything to be supported. In saying that, I will support this application. I think that this policy really doesn't make a lot of sense anymore. I think that we may want to just look at amending our zoning bylaw to include this use, and possibly, Mr. Stewart, that could be a discussion at a workshop. We're spending a lot of time on a process in regards to cannabis, and ultimately we're supporting all of them that come forward, regardless of opposition or support. It may be something that we may want to consider, and we've certainly experienced the use cannabis retail within the district, and as has been pointed out, there has not been any of the concerns that were originally brought up. So we may want to look at this again. I'll go to Mr. Stewart, and then I'll go to Councillor Forbes.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll maybe ask Mr. Milburn to clarify as to whether council has approved all cannabis applications. I believe there's a number that council has not approved for a variety of reasons. So I'm just, that's my recollection.
Oh, if I'm mistaken, I'm sorry, but I thought there was a couple that were withdrawn, but I don't know if they were ever defeated.
Maybe Mr. Milburn, go ahead.
I don't have all the figures in front of me. Mr. Hartford probably does, as I believe he compiles them for each report when these come forward. He's nodding his head. So Mr. Hartford, I believe, will have these. Thank you.
Your Worship and members of council, I can comment that there has been one application that was rejected by council. There were two other applications that were withdrawn by applicants before they were considered by council.
Which one was rejected?
1629 Marine Drive.
Oh, okay. Was that for parking issues?
That's correct. There is no parking on that site.
Yeah, so that was a bit of an anomaly because there was zero parking. But thank you. Yes, I digress from that. So thank you for that information. Councillor Forbes. Oh, your mic.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was also I was remembering myself as well, but maybe that's one of the withdrawn ones. There was one up by Handsworth, and the community was so focused on not wanting that in the area. There was so much outpouring of negative feedback on that. That might be one of the withdrawn ones, but that's the one that came first to my mind. And I was just going to say that I still think there's value in listening to the community because each area is different. So I think there's value still to listen to the community. And I'm probably going to be the odd one out here. I'm also concerned about, this is the first of a provincial store going in when we got one just down the road that council approved on Marine Drive. So because I do have a problem with the government competing with private industry. I agree though with what all of council has said already, that a lot of the negative comments we had before have not come to fruition. So I'm not opposed to having the cannabis store, but I have problems with government moving in and competing against a private company. So for that reason, I won't support this.
Thank you, Councillor Forbes. I guess the government could say that they, liquor used to just be sold in the liquor stores. That was the only place that you could ever buy it. And then pubs, and then beer and wine stores, and it evolved. So, interesting point. It's, we'll obviously monitor as we move forward. I think there was an initial rush to get into the cannabis industry. And I think it's certainly quieted down a bit. There's not as many, probably because the market is becoming a bit more saturated with the stores. But, I certainly am always willing to listen to the community. And when you go through a process, in my mind, you want to be heard, and yes, council has the ability to make that decision at the end of the day. I guess for me, again, the challenge was that we were looking at town centers to start, and then we sort of quickly broadened from that policy. So I guess that was the part that sort of bothered me. I see no more speakers on the list, so I'll call the question on the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? And motion's carried with Counselor Forbes against. And now we're going to go to the last item, and that is bylaw 8459 and 8460 and 8461 West 16th Street. And this is coming back from a hearing. Who's going to move this one? Counselor Back is
I'll
going to
move
move
the
it.
item, acting Mayor.
And is there a seconder? Counselor Bond is going to second it. Okay, Counselor Back.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm happy to support this rezoning. I have visited the site a couple of times and walked around the site. We're looking at two buildings that I think do fit in quite well with the area, with the neighboring buildings. And as it transitions to more of a single family area south, but I think there's lots of positives about this. In the public hearing, there was, we heard from some residents who live very close to the location who were opposed. There seemed to be, a fair bit of concern around the parking and the access. But in walking around the site and looking at the parking that's proposed, I think there is an adequate amount of parking that's been proposed. I think there will be easy enough access in and out, and you do have the two access points. The buildings themselves, I think, as I said, will fit in nicely with the neighboring buildings. They bring 31 rental homes, purpose-built rental homes, to an area that's also very well served by transit. You are just about a block and a half or so from rapid transit, the rapid bus, the R2. And then there's lots of services that are in walking distance to this location. So I think for those reasons, I'm quite supportive. I'll note as well that there's being no fossil fuels being used as part of the energy plan for these buildings. So I think there's lots here that's worthy of support, and I'm happy to move the motion, the staff recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Back. Councillor Bond.
Thanks, Acting Mayor Murray. I'm having a little bit of an internet connection issue, so if it sounds like I'm cutting out, just wave at me and I'll try something different.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm happy to support this moving forward, second and third reading as well. At the public hearing, we did hear, as Councillor Back said, some concerns from the local neighbors, specifically about the parking situation, which seems to be attributed to some of the local commercial activity and some changes to the businesses in the neighborhood. And I think that's an issue that does need to be addressed, and I hope that our transportation staff will be looking at that for the existing residents. But I don't think that some local challenges with parking on that street specifically are a valid reason to be denying these rental and apartment homes that are proposed. At the hearing, we did hear that this project has been in the works for a number of years. I think it was either 5 or 6 years, and the applicant has come forward with a mix of both owned apartments and rental apartments, and is not looking for any type of compensation from the district for providing those. I know in other projects, either there's been, the district has conceded some additional density to allow for rental housing, or some CAC reduction. But in this project, I think they had a plan at the beginning and they've stuck to it, and it is providing a more diverse form of housing in this area. Like Councillor Back said, it's very close to the new rapid bus service. It's very close to shops and services. Although Marine Drive, especially at night in the rain, is a bit of a loud and noisy thoroughfare. There are many services that are close by that will allow the residents of these homes, should they be approved and built, to access the needs of daily life without necessarily using a motor vehicle all the time. So I think this is a good mix in this neighborhood. We do need more rental housing everywhere in the district, and I think adding some along this stretch of Marine Drive is a good thing.
Thank you, Councillor Bond. Councillor Hanson.
Thank you very much, Acting Mayor Murray. I will not be supporting the rezoning of these 7 lots to permit this development. In casting my vote as I will, I'm not criticizing the design, nor the proposal, nor the hard work of the applicant in bringing it to this stage. My concern relates to the balance of strata and rental units. I agree with Councillor Bond's statement that we do need more rental and that this would be an excellent place for rental. And at first reading of this proposal, I expressed my desire for more rental at this location and more rental in this proposal. The proposal calls for the creation of 62 units, being 31 strata units and 31 renta units. I believe, I've stated often, and I will continue to state, that the district requires more rental housing and more affordable housing, and not more market strata housing. By including 50% strata, I do not believe this proposal achieves the district's affordability goals, which in my view are becoming more urgent by the day. I believe that if we were to say no to such proposals as this, we would see more rental and more affordable housing proposals. And apropos Councillor Bond's statement, I would be in favor of working with the proponents to, and if their inducements are required or contributions required from the district of some type, I would support working with the proponents so that we do achieve a better mix of rental and affordable housing. And I believe that history will benefit, the district will benefit from creating that rental and affordable housing and creating a more balanced mix of housing. Just loading up more and more expensive strata is not, in my view, the solution to our housing problem in the district. And as I say, if more is required of the district, then I would be happy to contemplate what that more would be and how we could contribute to it. Were the unit mix of rental and strata different, were it more oriented towards rental, then I would take a different view of the matter. However, I can not support this rezoning at this time because I believe it has too much strata, not enough rental, too much the same as we've approved in the past, and is not doesn't send the message that I believe we need to send as to the urgency of creating rental and affordable housing in areas of the district that are suitable for it, which I believe this is an area of such suitability. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor Hanson. Anybody else before I, Councillor Curran? Your mic.
I saw Councillor, you might not be able to see our hands. Councillor
I can see them.
Forbes. Oh, okay. No, the digital ones were up.
I can see the digital ones too.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got you all on gallery right now, so I can see all of you. So you're first, and then we'll go to the next speaker.
Perfect. So just a question for staff, because this was brought up before. Were there any discussions with the applicant about whether or not there would be a project with the exact same density that's proposed for it to be rental in the discussions, or did those discussions take place?
Mr. Hartford?
Your worship, through you to Councillor Curran, that would not be a typical discussion that staff would have with council. Staff were reviewing a particular development application, and that is the application that's before council this evening, returning from a closed public hearing.
Sorry, I meant between staff and the applicant, based on Councillor Hanson had said that he had indicated earlier that he was more interested in rental. I'll just go by my recollection from other similar projects that with the density that is proposed there, 4 stories, that it would be unlikely for it to be a project that would move forward and as is. So I will support this moving forward. I agree that both rental, but also diversity of housing is important. When the majority of the land base in the district North Vancouver is zoned for single family homes. And I think the average price now is about $2 million for a single family home that just went up by some outrageous 30 some odd percent. So I think that the diversity is something that we don't talk about enough. And that is something that aligns with many previous policies that have been largely unanimously supported by council. There would likely not be support for increased density here for a 5 or 6 potential story building based on concerns that were expressed around traffic. And so I think that this building is an option that is one that we should see moving forward. Although not perfect, I think nothing that comes our way is perfect. This area is an area that I think in general, I'd like to see more green space and more green design in the area because it is a mixed use. While there is great industrial, and I think we can maintain that, I think everyone enjoys being surrounded in nature. And when I look at that particular area of the district, it doesn't seem, I know it's out of the forest, but it seems like there's more we could do to make it greener and healthier for everyone that's living and working in that community, which is accessible. I have ridden there on an electric bike from Deep Cove because the workshop, one of my favorite places for lunch, is near there. And, you know, it is quite walkable. It is on the rapid line, as other councillors have pointed out. And it is in a place where you can walk to a lot of places. And I think that's the future of urban and in this area development, is that you have places that you can work to, that have work and not have to get into a car. So although right now we don't live in that society, it doesn't mean that we can't create that society by choices that we make. So I hope we'll continue to make choices that align with some of the specified actions in our OCP action plan. And this is one of those that achieves the highest rating in terms of achieving climate targets, housing targets, completing town centers is one of the highest rated objectives out of the OCP. So yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Councillor Forbes, did you have your digital hand up? There you go.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple of comments. I feel like Councillor Hanson, I'm in agreement with the things that Councillor Hanson has said. What we were developing with the previous council, or the previous couple of terms of council, we were developing a lot of strata, and we were developing market rentals. And as we have said, and we've all agreed, market rental is not affordable. And one of the things that we need the most in North Vancouver is rental, but affordable rental. And so I'm not in favor of market rental. So even though it was a 31 for one and 31 units for the other, they're not even attempting to be in the affordable range. And I would say the same thing as Councillor Hanson, that, you know, if we could work with this developer, I would be willing to have, you know, if something is needed from the district in order to get more, to have some more affordable rental, then I would certainly be willing to work towards that. Couple of response comments is that I just got my assessment notice, and apparently the District of North Vancouver average single family home increase is 22%, not 30. And I don't know what relevance that has to this particular area. This area is, in my mind, a good area for us to have rental. And I think because it's just set back a block or two off Marine Drive, that it's probably, and it's got commercial going down Pemberton and down towards the port waterfront. I think it's probably a good area where densification could be done. It provides transportation. It provides a lot of opportunities, business opportunities, grocery shopping, all kinds of services along Marine Drive. So I think this is an area that would lend itself to a little bit of gentle densification. So I don't think that that's a problem. As far as green, I think when you get a little farther over, maybe a block or two over, that's where the single family homes come in. And there are quite a Norgate Park, there are quite a few parks down in there. So there is, and there's the school down in there, the elementary school. So there are some parks down in there. As much as, and it's a very good quality of life. It leads farther into Norgate as well. And it's a lovely area, and Spirit Trail is in there. So my comments would be along those lines. And I do agree with Councillor Hanson that I would be more than willing to work with them if they would look at either a different mix and have some affordable rental in there. But as the proposals put forward here, I won't support it tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Forbes. Wow, well, so many things are happening all at the same time, and it's not all about weather. Certainly the assessments going up should make us all gasp. You know, how can this be? Chip Wilson's house is among the most lucrative in the country, $75 million. When is it 200 million? You know, who's going to buy that house in 25 years? You know, when does the ceiling crack on the costs? You know, I think those that, you know, have been involved in the development industry, you know, the idea of supply and demand, if you build more, if you increase supply, the price will come down. And I want any of you to tell me when that has happened anywhere in the region. I challenge you. Show me where the assessments have dropped in Metro Vancouver since 1986. It hasn't happened. They continue to go up and up and up. A 600 square foot condo in one of the towers on Mountain Highway went for $700,000 on the 11th floor. So I guess it was the view that dictated the price. You know, there is also a huge issue that we never talk about, and that's the livability of the community. It's not getting cheaper because we're building more. The city of North Vancouver isn't cheaper than it used to be because they've densified, and they've probably densified more than any of the municipalities on the North Shore, and the price has not come down, it's gone up. You know, market rental is not affordable. Non-market rental is not affordable. Like 10% below market, how is that affordable? It's not. You know, the work that we're doing with social housing and trying to look after those that we displaced, that is good work, and we should keep focusing on that. But to think that we just continue to build and create supply for those that are demanding increased investment opportunities, you know, is challenging for me. You know, those young people that are trying to get into the market, no amount of density is going to help them get into the market here. It hasn't happened in 30 years, 40 years. Young people had to leave the community, build up equity, come back. Though places like Mission where they went, or Surrey where they went, or you know, Delta where they went, or Coquitlam where they went, in order to come back to the place that they grew up in, is just as expensive. You know, Mission is expensive to live in. You know, it was at least, you know, on the outskirts of the region where you could go and buy a piece of property and get into the market. And then if you so chose, you could sell and come back, but not anymore. It's so expensive everywhere. You know, you can't get in for $2 million, as Councillor Curran points out. $2 million, like if you have $2 million, isn't it sad that you can't get in for that amount of money? Or 1.5, like 1.5 million used to be considered a lot of money. Now it's like, it's not even enough to get into a single family home. It's so sad. It really is. I don't know what we're doing to our community. And I think the federal and the provincial governments needs to step in. It is just outrageous that we think that, you know, assessments can continue to rise and rise and rise. And we just need to build and build and build. And somehow that's going to solve all of our problems. I'll take my other 2 minutes, Mr. Gordon. So I think, you know, when the assessment, when BC assessment was created 50, 60, 70 years ago, you know, it was for a family to buy a piece of property, and the average amount of the sales in the neighborhood determined how the assessments would rise the following year. We're not even on the same level playing field anymore. You know, now we have like, you know, huge conglomerates. You know, buying and selling land is a business. Owning land is a business. So it's just not, it's not sustainable anymore, the process and the policies that we follow. And I understand that development and construction is a significant part of the gross domestic product now in our country. And it's you know, governments love what's happening. I mean, when we consider property tax at $1.6 billion, you know, what government would want to give up that kind of cash, but at the expense of what? So you know, on this project, I think, Councillor Curran, to answer your question, the applicant, I believe, came forward at early input. I think what's happened is that the build out still is not complete in the area. What's built out is being filled, and there's a lot of cars coming. Businesses are changing hands. I fear for this area because I think it's become a destination. It's not that walkable community that we tried to achieve. I think the lease rates are too high, and I think there's a lot of services that are taking up the ground floor retail. And I think that's going to challenge the livability of this area in the future. And I think we need to get a handle on it. You know, the uses that we're allowing in the area in order to create a sustainable, you know, community and to be able to provide those services so you don't have to drive. But right now it's a huge destination area. It's mostly people are coming from outside the area to you know, use the services that exist. So I think I'm going to, unfortunately, not be able to support this project either for the comments that Councillor Hanson pointed out, and I will be voting against. I'll call the question if there's no other speakers. All those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Back, are you in favor or opposed? Sorry, I'm not sure.
I'm in favor, sorry.
Oh, you're in favor. Okay,
Thank you.
Councillor Back. So in favor and opposed, that's a tie. The motion is defeated. Okay, thank you. I think Mayor Gordon, Mr. Gordon, I think that concludes the regular agenda. Is there anything else on the agenda other than council reports? I'm not sure if there are any reports from councillors. I think I made my comments at the beginning of the meeting. I don't see any council comments. Mr. Stewart, do you have any comments to make?
No, Your Worship. I just wanted to comment about the work that the staff has done with respect to snow clearing and weather, and you've done that. And I just wanted to share that information around one of the top employers in BC. So I've got nothing more to add. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so if that is, that's the business this evening. Thank you very much, Council. 8:09. A bit of a record. Move adjournment, Councillor Back. Thank you very much. Seconded by Councillor Forbes. And I'll call the question. All those in favor, opposed, motion carried. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Yeah, good night, everyone.